You're listening to Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Join us as we explore how medical professionals can achieve stellar success in all areas of life. It's time to level up.
Hello, everyone. We're back at Stellar Success Podcast. I'm your host again, Dr. Tudor Francu, and I have an interesting guest today, Dr. Richard Farnam from El Paso, Texas, with a very accomplished career that we're going to get into, and his personal mindset to get to that. How are you, Dr. Farnam?
Great. Thanks for having me on, Dr. Francu. We met on LinkedIn, and I have spent 20 years of my career indefatigably moving myself towards basically financial freedom, to be in a position. I love what I do. I love operating. It means so much to me to be able to change lives, but I don't want to have to do it. I want to do it only because I love to do it. And a lot of just my formative events in my life have caused me to have that as a singular focus, to get to the point where we're in a good position. And I think what you're doing here is amazing, to bring on other physicians around the country that have found their own path to success, however they define that, and sharing that so that other medical professionals, there's a lot of doctors in a dark place right now. And, to see that there's a way to get yourself in a position where you take back control, just seeing how other doctors have done, I think this is great. Thanks for having me on.
Sure. It's a pleasure. I think people are going to be interested in different points of view of how you become successful in this kind of, medical field. But also, as you said, become financially free so you can do whatever you want, when you want, whom you want. So do you consider yourself successful?
I think that for me, success is being a man that my children are proud of introducing me to their friends, their colleagues, and anybody else. And to have that legacy as long as I live and after I go, to have left a legacy where I had a positive impact on people, because your children are the one that are going to share that message. So
yeah,
my wife and I, we've been married 15 years. We have 4 kids, and young, impressionable minds. And I want to leave a good example.
That's awesome. That's a great definition. And I think everybody can relate to that. We usually live through our kids, right? And we want to get that impression upon them to carry it forward. Tell us a little bit about your story. Like, how did you become what you are right now?
So I grew up in rural Wisconsin, and my parents divorced when I was 12. And, my mother raised me and my 2 brothers. And, we really didn't have anything growing up. I remember one cold winter, we didn't have enough wood for the fire, and we had a chicken that had to last us a whole week. And that creates a drive in a young mind, that you had pain and you had suffering, but that is a driving force, and it's been a driving force in my life to live in a world of abundance, because I've always, for most of my life, run from scarcity. And now I'm at the point where I am, with the help of my wife, trying to embrace the concept of abundance. And she's also a physician. And, we met in Cleveland Clinic. We were both rotating. She's internal medicine. I'm OBGYN. And very different worlds apart. She was born in India, raised in California. And we decided we're going to make a life together. Did my fellowship in New York and started practicing in 2006 in El Paso, Texas. I was the only urogynecologist at the time. And, you make hay when the sun is shining. So we both took to working extremely hard early on. One of my faculty mentors always said, the secret to success, one house, one spouse. And so, and try to live below your means. So there's a tendency for professionals, whether it's a professional athlete that came from nothing and came into money, or as many physicians came from nothing and came into money, to want to spend that money to have a great lifestyle. And it's been said that, the the poor spend all their money to look rich, and the rich use all their money to stay rich, right? Or to get richer. And it's really just the concept, like what is even money? I mean, nobody collects little green pieces of paper with, dead presidents' faces on them, right? The money is what it represents. Does that represent time with your family? Does that represent your Lamborghini? Does that represent your ability to have financial freedom? And, so for me, having run from scarcity my whole life, I have tried to learn from people outside of medicine. I've tried to arrange a peer group of individuals who are successful so I can learn from them. And not people that want something from me, not people that, hey, there's a dumb rich doctor, let's get him to invest in our scam, but true friends that have been successful. And, most physicians are risk averse. We went into this specialty because, we want a guaranteed good quality of life. We want to work really hard on the front end. But as we've all experienced through COVID and even before then, the burnout rate is all-time high, and physicians feel stuck. They feel that they're not appreciated for what they do. And many 50-year-old physicians still paying off their student loans because they made bad financial choices early on because no one gave them the education, the financial intelligence to be able to, avoid those pitfalls. So I think the simplest thing you can do is create a money machine as a physician. You got to liquidate your student loans, but after that, or even concomitantly, you got to put money into, and this is after maxing out your 401ks and everything else, put money into an investment. It could be anything. It could be real estate. It could be S&P index fund, but just pump money into that. And once you reach your threshold for what you need to live on, if you assume 10% returns, you got, $1 million. If you can live off $100,000, then you never need to work another day in your life. For some physicians, their lifestyle is a little bit more grandiose, and they need, 4 million or they need 10 million. And these are investable assets. This is not the home you live in. And again, it comes on how you see money. If you see money as, I'm going to buy this Rolex and this car, and I'm going to enjoy the fruits of my labor, I mean, that's fine, and you deserve that. But just understand that everything, rich dad, poor dad, right? Everything is either an asset or a liability. If you purchase something and it's not giving you an ROI, that's a liability. Your house that you live in is a liability. Now, I think there's a huge peace of mind to be living in a house that's paid off, right? And then you just have to worry about your tax and your insurance. But understand that money probably could be leveraged in a different way to create a greater ROI once you have grown in your financial education journey to the point where you're making good kind of educated decisions, not grasping at straws. I'm not saying, you can't take a flyer on cryptocurrency or something like that, but, have a strategy where the financial investment has instruments that are reproducible over time. And there's plenty of things to choose from. Ray Dalio says you got to have 12 uncorrelated assets. So no matter what market you're in, you're going to continue to go up. Every asset class you love will lose 50% of its value sometime in your life. We saw that with the real estate market in 2008, and that affected all the markets. And many of my mentors, physicians that had blessed me with education and training that I bring into the OR every day, they got cut in half, and they were near retirement age and had to work another 10, 15 years. So you've got to position yourself where you're investing intelligently into strategies that have a reasonable return for your risk, and with whatever's left over, you can probably afford to gamble on some more risky strategies.
So let's go back a little bit and kind of deconstruct your success so far. You're still practicing, right?
I am. Yeah, I'm full-time practicing. In fact, and I think it's worth mentioning, I thought I was solid. I thought, nothing can touch me. I'm in a good position. And COVID happens, and, I don't get a paycheck for 3 months. For the first time in my life, can't pay a credit card bill. And this was 2019. And so I made it my mission, for the next year to get, zero personal debt. And of course, investment is a whole different strategy. And if you listen to Dave Ramsey, it's like no debt, no investment debt, no debt of any kind. And that's good for people that Yes, I was listening to a podcast where was talking about, if you're an alcoholic, all alcohol is bad. You can't have any alcohol in any circumstances or bad things happen. So people can be like that with debt. So for some people, that is great advice. No debt. Get rid of all the debt. There obviously there are opportunities for arbitrage where, maybe you're paying 3% on your house and you have a 10%, not guaranteed, but low risk ROI on an investment. It might make sense to borrow against, a 3% to arbitrage and get 7% on the back end. So I'm not saying I don't think, Robert Kiyosaki's exactly correct all the time. And I don't think Dave Ramsey's correct all the time, but I think there's a middle road where you can feel that no matter what happens in any market, no matter what, house is paid off, cars are paid off, zero personal debt. And then you go hard after your investment strategy. I didn't want to take that detour on you, but I think that was an important part of my journey.
Yeah. So, I want to get a little bit into the concept of being a physician that has interests in becoming financially free. And you mentioned, several strategies of investing, but I see a banner behind you saying DoctorRich. Can you tell us more about this banner and what does it mean?
Yeah, so I suppose that has an accidental meaning of, you could say, superimpose the concept of, being rich. But rich, again, that doesn't necessarily, and in this context, doesn't mean monetarily. That just means you have a rich life. You spend more time living in a beautiful state than you do living in, an angered state. Because at the end of the day, you can have all the money in the world, and if you're just angry and miserable all the time, what was it worth? So the DoctorRich concept I launched during COVID also actually was the idea that when I hang up the scalpel, I will have directly affected the lives of 10,000 people. I also, in the 4 other LLCs that I have, one of them is a teaching and education platform. So that includes my working with industry partners to educate other surgeons on surgical techniques. And it also includes, kind of direct to patient information. Like, these are things that I've learned during my journey that are helpful without having to, go to the doctor, or maybe somebody spent time with me and the visit was too short and I couldn't explain everything I needed to explain to them. So all this content has been chronicled over the last 4 years on my channel as we continue to grow, and I reach out to another podcasters reach out to me and say, hey, we've got some ideas and concepts we'd like to work with you on. And it just helps spread that message. And it increases the scale of, patients, other physicians, other people I can help. Because again, at the end of the day, if you have all the money in the world, but you never shared it and you never really helped anybody, I don't know that would, for me, that you could have $100 million. That wasn't a life worth living. I think your success is measured by the people that you helped.
So what do you think sets you apart in that approach? Because, to be able to do this kind of things outside of your medical practice means that you have some kind of discipline that you formed yourself in, some skills, some habits, some routines that you do to get there. Can you give us examples of that?
Yeah. So I in 2018, I was completely burnt out. My only focus was, get to this financial freedom target, pay off your debts, and invest. And just working 90 hours a week. And I didn't pay attention to my own health. I didn't pay attention to my physical health, my mental health, my family. I didn't pay enough attention, and so I started my journey in this personal development world. Several different mentors, Jen Sincero, Tony Robbins. I can name any number of people that I have reached out to study and look for helpful ways that I can stay balanced as a human. And as you pointed out, Darren Hardy wrote a book called The Compound Effect. And
I love that book.
1 millimeter changes, right? So if a plane leaves New York and it is headed towards, San Francisco, and it deviates 1 millimeter over that distance, you end up in Seattle. And those 1 millimeter shifts, those 1 millimeter changes in your life, have a profound effect on the back end. And so I'm not perfect, right? But I try to stick to a habit of an exercise strategy that I'm accountable to somebody else. So whether that's a trainer, for me personally, I do Orange Theory because I sign up and then I'm accountable, right? I have a something on my schedule that I have to go to. But I think that's a critical part is I see so many physicians working so hard and being financially successful, and their health has just failed them. And doctors are bad patients, and so I have spent a lot of time actually going to see specialists and making sure that I'm on the right track before disease sets in. And that is the challenge that we can all acknowledge in healthcare is it's sick care. And most of the time is spent on curing the disease that already happened rather than prevention. And so I think a lot of focus needs to go on that. Physically, exercise, you literally are what you eat. If you eat fried food every day, you get free radicals and endocrine disruptors and things that you're not going to notice today, but down the line are going to have significant negative impacts on your health. And, whether that means being a vegetarian or, personally, I always recommend kind of the Mediterranean diet. That we could have a whole podcast just about what diet, and the pseudoscience behind a lot of the nutrition experts that, one person will say, carnivore is the only way to go. And somebody else will say vegan's the only way to go. And some of it's individual. Simply if you're not going to stick to something, that's not the right thing for you.
Yeah, I feel like the notion of diet, here it means not necessarily what you have to eat, but what you do not need to eat.
Yes.
And that's what most people don't understand. It's not as much as what you need to eat is like what you need to avoid eating.
That's right. And unfortunately, it's just easier for the parents to, take the kids and get them a Happy Meal than it is to do a home cook meal. And there are food deserts everywhere where you literally, if you wanted to get a salad, you couldn't, it's not within walking or driving distance. And those are some challenges that I think from an institutional, from like a government standpoint, those are things we need to tackle. But my advice would be to avoid anything you could put on a shelf for a year. Don't eat that. Anything that's added to food to preserve its life will probably shorten your life. So fresh food. If you're going to do meat, grass-fed, grass-finished. And there's a lot of different strategies, but just be mindful of the things that you're eating. And to your point, the things that you're not eating, things that you need to avoid, excesses of anything, alcohol excess, you got to cut that out. No possible benefit from smoking, and vaping's even worse because it gives this impression that, oh, here's a safe alternative to smoking. And it clearly is not. It's as bad, if not worse. And so these are things that we try to set that example, for our kids. This is, what you need to do to create a healthy body. We only get one vehicle to carry us around for the rest of our lives. We got to take care of it. And to that end, we inhabit this body, right? We were imbued by our Creator to have a soul in this body. We carry it around, and then we'll return when the journey's done. And a great book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And he spent, a year sitting on a park bench, just observing, just being in the now, because it is such a cliche that everybody you talk to, there've been books written about it on their deathbed, well, what's the secret to life? And it's like, I wish I would have stopped and smelled the roses, right? I wish I would have spent more time thinking about now. And to that end, a mindfulness practice, a 5-minute meditation a day to simply be in the now and acknowledge that. There's what's in the past. The past. There are great moments, but a lot of times people spend the time on the regret and the depression about things that have happened in the past. There's nothing that can change that, right? The future is just a projection. That's where anxiety lives. We need to spend more time and focus on actually living, like this moment. This is all that there ever is this moment now. So I think a mindfulness practice from the physical standpoint, getting that exercise, diet, and there's a number of different things you can do. There's something called 75 Hard, I think is a really good challenge that can really, I think, anything that forces you to do the habit. And, people, if you do it for, I think, 21 days, there's an 80% chance that you'll keep doing it. If you do it for less than that, almost zero. And, this is the time to talk about it, right? Everybody's got their New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
But most people fail by the second Friday in January. So I think that if you have things that are way too big, you're not going to do them. So I think, pick the most important thing right now for you, whether that's clean up your diet, be mindful, do this, work harder, pay off that debt, whatever it is. I think goal setting, right? That's a huge thing, right? If you're not driving towards, those who don't have a vision will perish, right? So you've got to know where you're headed, right? What do you want? And there's something called 6-phase meditation in Mind Valley. I'm forgetting. It'll come to me, but that's a great meditation, 6-phase meditation, because it goes through all these things I'm talking about. It goes through, getting rid of regrets, right? Resentment is drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, right? Makes no sense. It only affects you. It doesn't affect anybody else. So getting rid of resentments and in the meditation, they talk about everybody's connected anyway, right? All the atoms in your body, except a few neurons, are totally different than the atoms that inhabited your body 7 years ago, right? You're literally a different person than you were 7 years ago. So, those atoms, we breathe the air molecules that Abraham Lincoln breathed, right? So we're all connected, and a charge against somebody else in a way is a charge against yourself. So it is critical to, and I'm not saying like, forgiveness is a whole other thing, but getting rid of the resentment, that's a totally different journey. But and then what makes you happy? For me, that's my family, making sure they're taken care of. Again, the people that I'll have the greatest generational impact on are your direct family members, right? And so making sure that I can try to share the knowledge that I have with them about how to live not just a good life, but an amazing life, right? There's no practice life. This is it. I was watching a thing with Matt McConaughey. He said, if you're going to do it with everything you've got, right? Don't go halfway, right? And if you give it everything you've got, you either succeed, which was the goal, and that's great, or you fail, and then that just wasn't for you. But there's nothing worse than doing something halfway and not succeeding and wondering what would have happened if I really gave this my full attention.
Are you a busy medical professional striving to excel in life and work? Stellar Success Podcast brings you the habits and insights of top leaders in medicine and beyond. Discover strategies for balance, growth, and fulfillment in every episode. Follow us on Instagram at Stellar Success Podcast for daily inspiration. Start your journey to success today. Subscribe to the YouTube channel now. Speaking of failures, to become successful, you need to go through some hardships that, they teach you some lessons. What was something in your life that you went through and you failed?
So in medical school, there were no doctors in my family. I figured I would be a family practitioner. Those are the only doctors I'd ever seen. And I went to medical school. I rotated through surgery, and I'm like, man, this is amazing. I've got to do surgery. And most of the people I saw that were surgeons, at least in my program in San Antonio, were very unhappy, and they didn't seem fulfilled in life. And we control our own destiny, but the odds didn't look good. And then I wrote through the OBGYN rotation, and there was still a surgical component. And all the people in my program were happy, and I decided that was my path. So my first year as an intern at Cleveland Clinic, this is before the 80-hour rule. And so, I remember being at the end of a 36-hour shift, standing up, interviewing a patient in triage, falling asleep, standing up. And she's like, "Doc, wake up." I'm like, "Oh, one more hour and then I'm done." I was the only male, and there were 4 women in my group, and then there were no other men until my chief group, where there were 4 men. And we bonded because we were men. And just you have different tribes and different groups. People bond for different reasons, and that was taken as kind of well, you shouldn't be associating with those. Those guys aren't on your level. They're above you, and it created a lot of resentment among the other second and third years. I don't know how to say it. I had a bad experience. I had a very bad experience with the work hours, and then kind of being put down by some of the other members in the program. And I decided I was going to quit. I decided that I didn't want to spend the rest of my time doing this. And was on a break. I flew back to San Antonio where I did my residency. I spoke to the chief of anesthesia there. I said, look, I did a 4th-year AI with you. I liked it. What do you think? Maybe I'll come back and switch programs. And then I went, I wrote a letter. I was going to quit. And my mentor took me aside and said, hey, I'm not saying don't do it, but put the letter away, finish the year. Okay. Finish what you started. I'm here for you. I'm a resource. And it's meant to be hard. It's meant to challenge you. It's meant to knock you down, because in life, that's going to happen. You're going to spend a career. You're going to get sued. It's going to rip your life apart. You're going to have a bad outcome one day. And I know you. I know how much you care, and it's going to destroy you. And for better or worse, these hard things that we go through in life, that pressure,
Makes a diamond.
Diamonds are made, right? And
like they say, the only way to go through hell is just that.
And I took his advice. I stuck it out. Did my fellowship. This is before there was a board certification for urogynecology. As soon as the board certification came out, became board certified in urogynecology, and started robotics early. And now I'm the number 3 robotic gynecologist in the world. And that would never have happened. I never would have met my wife. Never would have had my 4 beautiful children. Now I'm choking up about it, but that one decision, changes a life. And who knows, what would have happened. And I'm sure I would have found a way to find my own success on another journey. But, I have an amazing life. And that's a choice, right? I mean, I could certainly look at, man, I had a tough week last week, and the stock market's down, my life is miserable. Or you could say, God, look at all of the things that my life is blessed with, right? And my wife got a new phone. She's like, you got to take my phone to the Verizon store and get it programmed today. And I caught myself because I was like, oh man, this is my day off, and now I got to do this. And it's like, nope, I get to do this, right? I get to help. And I think that's a choice every second, every minute of every day. Life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. And, just like that, to me, failure in my life put me on a path of success where I'm at now. If you don't have those, if your life is just easy street, if you're just a trust fund kid, I don't know. I don't see a lot of fulfilled trust fund kids, right?
Well, you mentioned the fact that, people are quitting, especially in this profession. And I'm thinking, aside from burnout and the fact that a lot of doctors are at the point that, like you said, they reached a point where they either don't want to practice anymore, or they just don't want to try something else. And you had experience right now. You're telling us about getting, some other LLCs that, your interests are somewhere else. What do you think about this income streams that you need to have in order to be able to sustain your lifestyle, even if you don't want to practice or you want to retire or whatever you want to do? Because ultimately it's, you can't just like decrease your lifestyle from being a doctor to like, bare bones standard of living. How do you approach this?
That's a great question. I think it starts with, what quality of life will make you happy. And if only your current physician income is going to make you happy, you're going to have to work a lot harder to maintain that level of income into retirement. I think diversification is the key, but it starts very early on as a doctor. And I tell all my medical students that who rotate through my practice, as much as I'm trying to teach you about medicine, I'm going to try to teach you about billing. I'm going to try to teach you about, fiscal strategies. And, the best way.
This is one big thing that we lack in medical school. And in medical world, I would say, we know how to be good doctors, but that's pretty much it.
Yep. And again, it kind of depends on what your definition of success is, and how, some people can't be happy being employed, right? They need the control of having their own practice, and if that's what you got to do, you got to do that. Some people can't be happy because they can't the risks. They can't take the risks of an uncertain environment, and again, I think most doctors are at their core fiscally conservative. Now, a lot of my entrepreneur friends that I try to include in my friend circle took tremendous risks. When they were younger, they built businesses and they exited. And that really is the way to financial freedom, is to find a way to add value that people will pay for, create a business around that, hire other people to proliferate that business, get to the point where you catch enough attention that it's scaled to the point that someone else will want to buy that. And the truth is, and then after you've exited, you can oftentimes retire. And I have a number
that's one thing. I mean, this is a great recipe, right? And everybody kind of knows that. But the question I have for people like this is, usually who does that are people that they cannot stop. They do this once and they do this several times after that, because that's their structure. That's their whole role in life. So where do you stop?
Well, that's a very good question. And, it makes me think of another story that, Tony Robbins talks about. Is a guy, real estate mogul, built a bunch of stuff and made a bunch of money, and then got into the air market. So he owns the air above these buildings. And then the financial crisis of 2008 hit, and he had north of $500 million net worth, lost absolutely everything. And so that comes back to the point of, no matter what endeavor you're going to go on, you always have to have a side money machine that you're okay. So take profits and put it over. People tend to fall in love with the one thing that they're really, really good at. So if you're a real estate investor, you love real estate and you make all your money, but you're not protected, right? When the real estate market falls. Some people love investing in the stock market, and that crashes. So you can't be all in on any one thing, as we talked about earlier. You have to have a separate either an LLC or just an investment fund where you're putting things that are low volatility as far as the trading standpoint. So you want something that is an index fund. When you get a money manager, they're going to trade in and out of different funds that actually doesn't end up making you money, but every trade nets them money. So it's to their advantage to keep doing that. It's actually a shameful thing that America is one of the only countries that your financial advisor does not have to be a fiduciary. So as doctors, we are fiduciaries, right? We have to put our own health, our own interests above. We have to put our patients above our own. We have to put our patients' interests above our own interests. We are legally obligated, as is your attorney. But unless you're a registered investment advisor, which is a small subcategory, only about like 8% of all wealth managers are RIAs, they can trade in and out of stuff. And they drive up in their Rolls Royce and they get you coffee. All of these big Raymond James companies have their names on the side of stadiums. Where do you think they got that money? Your retirement.
Yeah.
So if you don't trade out, you go with an RIA or just do it yourself and invest in index funds. Every 1%, because it's like, we'll just charge you 1%. 1% that you give to your broker over a lifetime is 7 years of retirement. You have to work 7 more years for that 1% that you gave your broker.
Well, that's a price that someone pays for lack of financial education, right? So you could look at it and say, okay, I'm going to take that money and educate myself, like try to get a course, try to get books, have a mentor. But very few people do that, right? So in our profession, right? So it's not, most of us, what they do is they focus on their job to become better and earn more. And then they afford to pay 1% to a financial advisor to make them more money. But in general, what I've seen so far is that a lot of us do not have any financial education. Like, we don't know what to do with money in general. Point blank. I mean, that's the major question I have for a lot of people. What do you do to financially educate yourself towards the end? Because ultimately, nobody knows your situation better than yourself, and nobody's going to make you more money better than you have your own decisions. Um, if you know what you know right now, after going through your medical practice, your financial successes, your business endeavors, looking back at yourself when you were 18 years old, what would you tell that person?
Wow, that is pretty deep. So the first thing, because I was, super scared kid with no real belief in himself or hope of the future. And, 18-year-old scared kid, I would say, um, I would tell him everything's going to be just fine. Keep doing what you are doing, and it's so hard to see. I think it's called a carrot plant, and you plant that, and it grows into a tree, but only for like 128 years or something. So you plant a tree, the shade of which you'll never enjoy. Um, and we all do that in our lives. We try, our lives are finite, so we try to do things that will in some small way change the world. But from the financial standpoint, and from, I guess, just the fulfillment standpoint, everybody is going to tell you you're doing the wrong thing. Oh, you got to come out and party with us. Oh, you're so lame. You like to read books. And it's hard. People want to lead you off the path, and not necessarily maliciously. It's just that's what they're doing. The other thing, I saw, I'll remember his name, but it was a social media influencer. He owned a gym, and now he does the stuff full time. But he said everybody will root.
Alex Hormozy.
There you go. Everybody's going to root for you until you're more successful than they are.
Yep.
And they turn into haters, and those were never your real friends. And we'll be lucky.
Yep.
We'll be lucky to have, true friends you can count on one hand. They said success causes resentment. There's a reason Lamborghinis have 2 seats and buses have 50.
I like that.
So
that's true.
I would say stay the path. Trust in God, trust in yourself. Trust that what you're doing, you've got to be, at the end of the day, if you're just not a good person, if you traded your soul for that success, it's never going to be worth it. And I think just in medicine, we're all in this journey together where we have this noble calling, and we do this. And I have friends that, several friends that didn't finish high school, and they worked their butt off from the very bottom in the restaurant industry, and now they own multiple restaurants. They work from the very bottom in the housing industry. Now they own housing, and they just, good friends of mine. And I don't resent their success. I want to soak up as much of their knowledge as I possibly can. And I'm never going to be, I'm never going to own a housing company or a restaurant. But the lessons, the tools that they've used to become successful, I have a housing, it's like a private lending company, but also multifamily and other real estate investments. So that's a company that just is in that vertical. And then I have another company that does investing in a little more alternative things. You can have an investment that is based on whole life settlements, where a company buys whole life policies from people that no longer need them, and then they get the cash value. It's an alternative investment, is completely uncorrelated with the market. And that's just the thing, to have these different investments. Private equity and private credit right now are huge opportunities, where you can invest and have actually a pretty significant upside. I'm working with a company now that it's called GP Stakes, where the way that is structured is, if we look at a real estate investment, there's general partners and limited partners. So my real estate company has limited partnerships in a number of multifamily buildings, but we just get a modicum of rental income, and then we get the multiple when they exit the property. But the general partner is making 10 times that. Okay. So there's a strategy where there's a company that has enough momentum, they have enough equity, that they actually buy a percentage of the GP or a GP stake. And then you get the management fee in addition to all the other benefits that you get. And at the end of the day, as my friend who owns a health club and some other things is it's the RMR, it's the recurring monthly revenue. So you got to get other people paying you monthly, as a recurring method, whether that's private lending or whether that's like in this format of the GP stakes, where you're getting a percentage of that management aspect of things. So the details, it gets kind of complicated, but to try to keep it as simple as I can, going back to the 18-year-old, I'd say, you're somewhere between Dave Ramsey and Robert Kiyosaki. You liquidate your debt. You do not get yourself into debt. Money is not to buy you all these things. I mean, you can at times when you feel you deserve it, but money is to make more little money babies, right? You take your money, you put it over here, and again, I think the simplest thing to do would be low cost index fund, VT or VTI, Vanguard fund, something like that, and force yourself, just like the little discipline that we do, the millimeter shifts that we make in our own lifestyle. You got to force yourself. And if I'll mess up the numbers, but if you start investing from, the age of 18 to 35, like $200 a month, you have something like, 2 million in retirement. Whereas if you didn't start until you're 35, you have to start putting, 3,000 a month to have, 2 million, and you have to invest for much longer. So it's compounded interest. So,
yeah.
The eighth one.
It's been interesting to have these conversations with you, and we're recording this at the beginning of the year. What's exciting you this year? What projects do you look forward to, and what's coming up?
So for me, I'm actually kind of stripping back different things. I'm leveraging off management of different things, and I'm really going to spend this year focusing on, different strategies to help my own, physical health and mental well-being, and spend time. So I'm more available with my family. It's not just with my family, but I'm in the now, available when I'm with my family, and trying to teach them the same things. Unplug the electronics. Let's spend this time. At the end of your life, you're not going to remember everything, but you're going to remember moments. And if you're never here, if you're always off thinking about something else, there's going to be less of them. And so I like to, this year really spend time making those moments. My son turned 15 last year, and it's like, just struck me. I've got 3 more years, and he's gone.
Yeah.
And so really, I really want to do that. Another, for the first time in history, the NFL has allowed private equity stake. Other major sports companies have done that for years. But the company I work with on GP stakes, they're offering that. So I'm looking into January 1st is when that first offering is available. So that's the only company since the 1960s that's had 50% increase in their value every year for the last whatever that is, 60, 70 years. So they've got a good business. Nice. They got a defensible moat because the NFL, you can't just make another NFL team. You have to have approval from all of the other teams. So that I'm excited about that.
Awesome. I think we're gonna have to circle back into your life maybe in a little bit and see how you're doing. It's been a pleasure. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'll send you the links in the QRs, but anybody can just search up DoctorRich, spelt out one word, DoctorRich.com. Farnam MD is the same URL. It'll go to the same place, and we'll be happy to see anybody and hopefully spread the word.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Franku. Appreciate it.
That's a wrap on Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Franku. Interested in joining us? Go to stellarsuccesspodcast.com/guest to apply. Stay stellar and level up.